Welcome to Skinner and Chalmers Weekly Roast. Today, Bread-mageddon, when whole wheat goes wrong.
I can't believe you tricked me into eating whole wheat bread.
Oh, come on, it wasn't that bad. Besides, it's good for you.
Yeah, right. And Santa Claus is gonna come down the chimney any minute now is what I said sometime last year when you tried to serve me some whole wheat bread. And with that, dear listeners, welcome to our new episode of Skinner and Chalmers Weekly Roast, a podcast where only the steamiest topics are discussed. It's the 4th of March, and as always, I'm Superintendent Chalmers, and by my side is my good old friend, Principal Seymour Skinner. Welcome, Seymour.
Hello, Chalmers. Nice to be here again.
So as you can probably guess, we're talking about that one day where you, Skinner, slipped me some whole wheat bread. You know, the one I thought was just your usual burnt excuse for a loaf of bread.
Oh yeah, that was quite the prank, wasn't it? But seriously, Chalmers, whole wheat bread is the future. It's healthy and delicious, and I think you secretly liked it deep down inside.
Well, that might be true. But let me tell you something, Skinner. That bread was so dry. I had to drink a gallon of water just to get my throat back in working order. You know what they say, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, but for your case, it's more like whole wheat bread keeps the speech therapist employed. Because afterwards, you have to get your vocal cords going again from all the coughing.
Skeptical speech. So, dear me, Chalmers. I'm sorry about that. But you have to admit, it was a bold move on my part. A true display of culinary courage, if I do say so myself.
It certainly was, Skinner, and I appreciate the effort. But next time, maybe go for something with a little more moisture. You know, like one of those artisanal sourdough loaves you've been eyeing up at the farmer's market with Sonic a few weeks ago.
Oh, now you're talking my language. Sourdough is definitely on my list. But you have to understand, Chalmers, whole wheat bread has a special place in my heart. It reminds me of when I was younger and my grandmother from Sweden used to make it for us. The smell of it baking. Ah, those were the days.
Well, you're lucky then. My own grandmother always made this horrible oatmeal bread that tasted like wet cardboard soaked in sawdust. I think she did it on purpose just to torture me. But enough about my childhood traumas. Tell me more about your plans for whole wheat domination, Skinner.
Whole wheat domination? Well, Chalmers, I don't know if that's quite the right term. But what I do want to achieve is a healthier meme-field through better bread choices. You know how they say you are what you eat? Well, imagine if everyone in this town started eating whole wheat bread instead of that white stuff they call bread in supermarkets nowadays. We'd be unstoppable.
I see where you're going with this. And to be honest, I do appreciate the health benefits of whole grains. But have you considered the other aspects, like taste and texture? Some people might not enjoy it as much if they're used to that soft, fluffy white stuff.
Ah, but Chalmers, that's where my culinary expertise comes in. I can make whole wheat bread so delicious that even the most stubborn of taste buds will be begging for more. Just wait until you try my new recipe with flaxseed and chia seeds. It'll blow your mind.
Well, if it's half as good as the burnt bread I had last time. Coughs. Excuse me. But seriously, Skinner, have you considered starting a whole wheat bakery? You would call it Skinner's Seeded Delights or something like that.
Oh, Chalmers. That's actually not a bad idea. But I think my true calling is in education. Teaching our children the importance of healthy eating habits through example. And what better way to do that than by feeding them whole wheat bread every day? Imagine it, a generation of Springfieldians who don't know what a sugar crash feels like.
I have to admit, the vision is quite inspiring. But how would you go about implementing this in the school system? Would you start by phasing out white bread from the cafeteria menu?
Oh, no need for such drastic measures just yet. We'll begin with small steps. Perhaps we could have a Whole Wheat Wednesdays initiative where students are encouraged to bring their own whole wheat sandwiches and snacks. A kind of socialization technique if you follow Bourdieu's habitus theory. That way they can experience the benefits of whole grains without feeling like they're being deprived. And who knows? Maybe some of them will even take a liking to it.
Well, I must say that sounds rather promising. But what about those parents who might not be as supportive? You know how some people can get quite protective over their children's eating habits.
Ah, yes. The infamous P. Bouget police. We'll just have to educate them gently, one parent at a time. Perhaps we could organize some informational sessions or even invite guest speakers who can talk about the benefits of whole wheat bread for growing children. And if all else fails, I always have my trusty excuse ready. Well, you see, it's part of our new health curriculum.
You really do think on your feet, don't you? All right, then, let's make this happen. We'll start by setting up a meeting with the school board and presenting them with our plan. And who knows? Maybe we can even get some sponsors to help fund it all.
Oh, Chalmers, you are simply brilliant. Together we shall conquer whole wheat ignorance and make MemedhamsAI Elementary the healthiest school in the entire state. But first, how about I whip up a batch of my famous whole wheat bread pudding? It's sure to win over even the most stubborn parents.
You never cease to amaze me, Skinner. Your culinary skills are only rivaled by your ability to spin a tale. Very well, then. Let's get started on this bread pudding recipe of yours. But remember, we don't want it too dry or burnt this time.
Oh, don't you worry about that, Chalmers. I've made some adjustments to the recipe since our last incident. This time it'll be light and fluffy, just like a cloud. And with all those healthy grains packed inside, it's sure to make even your tummy happy.
Sounds delicious. Now, where'd you say we should get the whole wheat bread for this recipe? Should we use store-bought or homemade?
Oh, I've already taken care of that. I made some extra whole wheat bread yesterday just for this very purpose. It's in my pantry right now, all fresh and ready to go. So, shall I get started on explaining the recipe to you and our listeners then?
Yes, please do. And don't forget to tell us about any unique ingredients or techniques we should be aware of before we begin.
Very well then, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I will be teaching you how to make my special whole wheat bread pudding using my homemade whole wheat bread. It's a simple recipe that anyone can follow, even if they don't have any culinary experience whatsoever. So, let's get started with the ingredients. Firstly, 2 cups of whole wheat bread, homemade or store-bought. Note, don't burn it. Secondly, 4 eggs. Thirdly, 1 cup of milk. Fourthly, 1½ cup of sugar. Fifthly, 1½ teaspoon of salt. Sixthly, 1½ stick of butter, melted. Seventhly, a pinch of ground cinnamon for extra flavor. Eighthly, any additional mix you'd like to add, for example, raisins, nuts, dried fruits, and so on.
The ingredients already sound good to me. Please continue. And remember, everyone, if your bread ever burns as badly as Seymour's did in the past, well, just blame it on the new health curriculum. It's all part of his master plan for world domination through whole wheat baked goods.
Thank you, Chalmers. And with that, let's explain the steps for making the bread. Firstly, preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. For people who use a reasonable unit of measurement in degrees Celsius, it is 175 degrees Celsius. Secondly, grease a large baking dish or casserole pan with butter or cooking spray. Thirdly, cut the whole wheat bread into cubes and place them in the prepared pan. Fourthly, whisk together the eggs, milk, sugar, salt, melted butter, and ground cinnamon in a large bowl until well combined. Fifthly, pour the egg mixture over the bread cubes and stir gently to combine. Sixthly, cover the pan with aluminum foil or a lid and bake for 30 minutes. Seventhly, remove the foil or lid and continue baking for an additional 15-20 minutes until the pudding is set and golden brown on top. Eighthly, let it cool slightly before serving. And voila! Enjoy your delicious pudding!
Sounds indeed delicious. And don't forget to mention that this bread pudding can be served warm or cold, making it perfect for any occasion. It would even make a great dessert at our next staff meeting or even at the annual rabbit show here in Memafield, where Shadow and Sonic always exhibit their two Angora rabbits.
Oh, I'm sure the teachers will love it, Chalmers. The same applies to Sonic and Shadow, although Sonic would probably prefer chili dogs and Shadow, fortunately, burnt chili dogs. In any case, he's always at the right address with me for the latter. But in general, they always appreciate my culinary creations. And who knows? Maybe this bread pudding will be just what we need to convince them of the importance of whole wheat in their diets. Now, shall we try a bowl ourselves after the podcast and see how it tastes?
What? You have some of that whole wheat bread pudding in your kitchen? Well, it depends. You mentioned you used homemade bread for it. I don't want to spend hours coughing again.
Of course not for you, Chalmers. This is the store, bought stuff. So this time we can enjoy it together without any worries. So, shall we afterwards?
Well, if you insist, let's dig in afterwards here on Earth today. Now that you mention it, this bread pudding smells amazing. I can already taste the warmth of the custard and the crunchiness of the bread. Yum. Yum.
I'm glad you like it, Chalmers. And remember, this is a great way to get your daily dose of whole wheat without even realizing it. It's healthy and delicious at the same time, just like me, Seymour Skinner.
Indeed you are, my friend. Very delicious, if I may say so myself. You know how much I appreciate your cooking skills and all those exotic recipes from around the world. Your passion for culinary arts is truly inspiring. But tell me, have you ever considered opening up a restaurant or something? I'm sure people would line up for miles just to taste your creation.
Oh, Chalmers, that's very kind of you to say. But you know how much I love my job here at Memafield Elementary School. Teaching is my true passion, and cooking is simply a hobby that brings joy to both me and my students. Plus, who would want to compete with Lunch Lady Dora's famous Sloppy Joes? Now those are some culinary masterpieces.
Well said, Skinner. But I must admit, even your burnt offerings taste better than anything else in this town. Like that time you tried making sushi.
Oh, don't remind me of the squishy roll debacle. That was a learning experience for sure. You know how much I love trying new things and pushing myself out of my comfort zone. It's just unfortunate that sometimes those efforts don't quite pan out as planned. But hey, at least we always have each other to laugh about it later, right?
Absolutely. And speaking of which, I heard you tried making your own pasta the other day.
Oh, that was a disaster! The dough kept sticking to everything, and my kitchen looked like there had been a flower bomb explosion. But hey, at least it made for some interesting artwork on the walls, right? Seriously though, Chalmers, I'm determined to master this craft. It may take me years or even decades, but one day I will be able to make a perfect plate of spaghetti carbonara without any help from my trusty cookbook.
Well, that day comes, you can count on me being there for the celebration. And who knows? Maybe by then we'll have our own reality TV show called Skinner Chalmers Kitchen Catastrophes or something like that. We could travel around the world and teach people how not to cook.
That actually sounds like a brilliant idea, Chalmers. Maybe we should pitch it to one of those cable networks. I bet they'd love to see two lovable goofballs like us trying our best in the kitchen. Plus, think of all the new recipes we could try out on unsuspecting audiences.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves just yet. For now, why don't we enjoy this delicious bread pudding and then maybe plan our next culinary adventure here on Earth today? I hear there's a new Thai restaurant opening up downtown that we should definitely check out.
Sounds like a plan, Chalmers. Shall we make a date for next weekend? And don't forget to bring your appetite, because I have a feeling they won't serve anything as delicious as this bread pudding there. But hey, at least we can always try and recreate their dishes in our own kitchens, right?
Absolutely. And remember, Skinner, no matter what happens, I'll always be here to share a laugh with you over burnt food. After all, that's what friends are for.
You said that beautifully. Friends are also there to try my healthy whole wheat bread again. Wink?
Well, that may be true, but let me tell you something, my friend. Your version of healthy and mine are two completely different things. You know how they say that the way to a man's heart is through his stomach? Well, in your case, it's more like the way to a man's lungs with that dry stuff.
Oh, come on, Chalmers, you didn't cough that much. And besides, I seasoned it really well with some of my homemade herbs and spices.
Yeah, right, and Santa Claus is coming down the chimney any minute now again. But you know what's even funnier? The look on your face when I started coughing uncontrollably. It was priceless. You should have seen the panic in your eyes as you were trying to think of an excuse for why it happened.
Oh, that's rich coming from you, Chalmers. Remember when we went on that school trip and you got lost? Who picked you up again? Or how about the time you accidentally locked yourself out of your office? Those are some real classic memories.
Yes, those were indeed interesting times. But let me tell you something else, Skinner. I may not be the best with directions or remembering keys, but at least I don't burn my food every single time I cook it like a professional chef.
Hey, at least I try new things in the kitchen. You know how they say variety is the spice of life. Well, that's what I bring to our friendship. And besides, you can never go wrong with a good old-fashioned excuse. Like when I told everyone that my oven was possessed by demons and that's why everything tasted funny. That one had them all fooled.
You really do have a gift for storytelling, Skinner. But you know what? I think the real reason people love your cooking is because of your personality. It's not just about the food. It's about how much heart and soul you put into everything you do. And that's something truly special.
Oh, shucks, Chalmers. You really know how to make a guy feel good about himself? But seriously, I couldn't have asked for a better friend or colleague than you. We may not always see eye to eye on everything, but at the end of the day, we always manage to find common ground and share a laugh together. And that's what really matters in life, don't you think?
Absolutely, that's true. Oh, and I forgot. We've been talking about bread and bread pudding all this time, but haven't even answered Magpie 1862's question on YouTube, why you tricked me into eating whole wheat bread.
Oh, that. Well, you see, I had a feeling that you weren't really enjoying the regular white bread as much as I thought you were. So I figured this was my chance to sneak in some whole wheat goodness without you noticing.
Well played, Skinner. But honestly, I appreciate your concern for my health and all that. It's just, I don't know, it's kind of hard to get used to the taste sometimes. You know what they say, you can lead a horse to water.
Oh, I hear you there. But trust me, Chalmers, your body will thank you in the long run. And who knows? Maybe with enough practice and exposure, you'll start liking whole wheat bread just as much as I do.
Well, let's hope so. At least if it's not burned to a crisp. And how did you actually manage to sneak this dry whole wheat bread into my diet? Didn't it feel like eating a brick every time you took a bite?
Oh, come on now. It wasn't that bad. Besides, I made sure to add some herbs and spices to give it some flavor. And as for sneaking it in, well, let's just say that I have my ways. You know how resourceful I can be when it comes to cooking?
Oh yeah, you are quite the master chef, but I still can't believe you've tricked me into eating whole wheat bread. It just goes to show that you should never underestimate Seymour Skinner when it comes to food.
Well, thank you kindly, Chalmers. And speaking of which, how about we switch topics for a bit? I've been meaning to ask you about this new book you're reading. Is it any good?
Oh, yes, actually. It's called The Art of Mindful Eating, and so far it's quite fascinating. The author discusses how our relationship with food can affect not only our physical health, but also our mental well-being. I highly recommend it.
That sounds interesting indeed. Maybe I should give that a read as well. You know, ever since I started experimenting with different cuisines and ingredients, I've been thinking more about the importance of being mindful when we eat. It really does make a difference in how much you enjoy your food.
Absolute. And speaking of enjoying food, have you thought about trying out any new recipes lately? I know you're always up for an adventure in the kitchen.
Oh, all the time. In fact, I was just going through some old cookbooks and came across this intriguing recipe for Moroccan spiced chicken with couscous. It sounds absolutely delicious, don't you think?
Oh man, that does sound good.
But You should know my favorite is not chicken, it's duck. And I don't eat chicken because I'm a vegetarian. So if you ever make this for me, please make sure to use duck instead. And yes, for all those listeners who are now totally confused, this is an insider between us.
You've accommodated it beautifully. And, of course, Chalmers. We can always find substitutes, right? And speaking of substitutions, have you tried using almond milk in your coffee yet? I've been using it lately, and I must say it gives the coffee a whole new flavor profile.
No, actually, I haven't. But now that you mention it, I think I should give it a try. It sounds like an interesting alternative to regular milk, and it would definitely be good for our planet in times of climate change and global warming. But sometimes it's hard to break old routines and try something new. But yes, so when are we going to have dinner together? You know I always enjoy your cooking, even if it does end up burning sometimes.
Oh, don't worry about that. That's just part of the charm, right? Anyway, how about this weekend? I could make my famous Moroccan spiced duck with Cusco's and almond milk coffee for dessert. Would you like to come over on Saturday evening?
You had me at Moroccan, spiced duck. Yes, Seymour. I'd love to join you for dinner this weekend. Just give me a call when you're ready and I'll be right over. And don't worry about the cooking mishaps. I always enjoy myself no matter what ends up on my plate. Or in my coffee, for that matter.
Thanks, Chalmers. You're the best. Oh, by the way, have you ever tried using a sous vide machine to cook your vegetables? It really helps them retain their nutrients and keeps them nice and crisp. I think it would be perfect for our dinner this weekend.
No, actually, I haven't. But that sounds like an interesting idea. Maybe we can research it together before the weekend. And who knows? Maybe you could even teach me how to use one of those things. It don't have too many buttons and complicated settings, that is.
Of course, Chalmers. We can do some digging online and figure everything out. And trust me, once you get the hang of it, using a sous vide machine becomes second nature. It's actually quite simple, in theory. But hey, practice makes perfect, right?
Absolutely. Well then, let's make sure we have plenty of practice before Saturday rolls around. I can't wait to see what other culinary adventures you have planned for us this week. And don't forget about the Moroccan spiced duck. And you know what would go perfectly with that? A nice glass of red wine. Maybe we could try pairing it together sometime soon.
Sounds like a plan to me. We'll have to set aside some time for that in the near future. But until then, I think we should probably wrap things up here. It was great catching up with you today, Chalmers. You always know how to brighten my day.
Likewise, Skinner. And remember, if there's ever anything I can do for you or help you with, don't hesitate to ask. We may not be related by blood, but we are most definitely family in every sense of the word.
Amen to that, sweetheart. Until next time. This is Principal Skinner and Superintendent Chalmers signing off.
See you later, alligator. Have a nice day.